Good morning. Welcome to the Alpine Church of Spiritual Living this morning. I am going to be reading the thought for the week, and you can join me if you're here in the room down at the bottom in the bolded area. We are moving into the holiday season, and what better way to do it than to emphasize our faith and trust? Yes, I know that might not be the first thing that comes to mind. Yet before we head down the slippery slope of all the doing, how about we start with putting first things first by simply being? Connecting to our higher self first thing each day will ground and center us. When we really stop to acknowledge how truly blessed we are, how we've managed to go through all of life's experiences and still be here, there comes a deep-seated knowing that all is well. Even when we may be in the midst of a dark night of the soul, God's hand is leading and guiding us. We are eternally being cared for, so why not sink into that awareness and be grateful? I have a little plaque in my bathroom that says divine right action is always taking place in my life. Only good comes from each experience. That takes a lot of faith and trust to be able to speak and believe those two sentences. No one ever said life would be easy. I know firsthand there are things that come to us that we would rather not experience. Yet I also know that within and around me is a higher power, a divine presence, that is forever holding me in its embrace. There's not a spot where God is not. Yet I must have eyes to see and ears to hear. I can choose to put my faith and trust in right action, or I can put my faith and trust in appearances. Appearances and effects are transitory, and sure as night follows day, they will change. Let me focus on what I wish to experience and let go of the rest. Say with me, I move into this holiday season established in the knowledge that my higher power, my God self, is always directing me to my highest and best good. I left out the last line. It disappeared. That's okay. All right. So, hey, how did you like that extra hour of sleep last night? Did you get it? Or were you like me? I just woke up at the same time and I had an extra hour in the morning. But at least, for us churchgoers, this one is a lot easier because, even if you don't get the clue, you're not going to come to church an hour late. You can be there an hour early, so that's helpful. Our theme this month is praise and thanksgiving, which shouldn't be a shock. It's kind of a natural for me to use that as our theme in November. And yet I want to start off with what I wrote in the thought for the week to emphasize faith and trust. We in our Science of Mind teachings have been told that speaking our word has power. But in order to have that power, we must have absolute faith that that power is within us. We have to discover, we have to encourage, we have to let ourselves, this finite being that walks around on this earth plane, become intimately related to our higher self that is not only just within us, but all around us. So it takes concerted effort for us to think about that and to do it. I have a congregant that's been telling me that some things in life, if things happen that just don't seem to be, what he'd prefer, he'd say, well, I know it's me. I'm just out of alignment somehow with my divine self. And I just have to get myself back in alignment. It's all up to me. And I thought, that makes a lot of sense, that there is this beautiful divine power wanting. Can you just imagine how much this divine power wants us to be joyous, to be happy, to feel and experience the love that we are? Do you recognize how much love this divine power has for us? Infinite. And if we could just sink into that and allow ourselves to accept that love, how much brighter, how much smoother, how much easier, how much joyous our lives would be. But when we look at if we are out of alignment, then it takes us doing something about it to readjust ourselves, to get ourselves back on track, so to speak. And that takes being responsible, taking responsibility. We in our teachings do not say that the devil made me do it. We may say that our innocence, that our ignorance allowed us to have a situation that we can learn from, but we don't scold ourselves, and we don't blame, and we don't shame. Well, we have in our past, I'm sure many of us have, but we're trying to get over that whole knee-jerk reaction. So in our teaching, we recognize that we are responsible for our lives, and that also the secondary thing is that we have to become aware of what we're doing, of what we're thinking, of how we're feeling. Because that awareness then moves into the being responsible and how we then can realign ourselves with our true higher power. I don't know where I was reading it, sometime this week, but it was saying that it says, this loving God that we have can't do our homework for us. We all have homework that we have to do, whether we want to believe it or not. I mean, when I was in school, I was so happy to be out of school and wanted to do something totally different. And then it took me a long time to recognize I'm never going to be out of school. This life is a whole life lesson, a lesson plan. And so we are here to learn our homework and move forward from it, through it. I think that is an important element of this thing that we call life. And a lot of it evolves around letting go of this egoic mind, letting go of the way that we have always thought ourselves to be. We just finished up Richard Rohr's book, Falling Upward. And he talks about the first and second half of life in it, and how the first half of life we are developing our, what he calls a container, and our ego, and our careers, and our families, and that's important. We need to establish that so that we can go beyond it in the second half of life and let go of that egoic sense, so that we are available, we can surrender this egoic sense to that higher self within us. So now we've just started in our book club, Living an Examined Life. It's written by James Hollis, a PhD. And in the beginning, he states, the powers of the unconscious cannot be underestimated. Our ego consciousness, namely who we think we are or what we really believe is real, is at best a thin wafer floating in an iridescent sea. The more conscious we become, the more aware of unconscious influences working upon our daily choices. The more conscious we are becoming, the more we realize how much is being driven by our unconscious daily choices. These confrontations with the ego's fantasy of sovereignty are truly intimidating, but they remain a summons to greater awareness. How haunting is Carl Jung's observation that whatever is denied within us is likely to come to us in the outer world as fate. In parentheses, he said, that thought alone keeps me at this work. We are responsible for our lives, and we can't point the finger at anyone else. And so really, to me, the easiest thing to do which is what we've been told time and time again, is to turn our lives over to this higher power within. To let that egoic sense have its will and its way at times, but then recognize that, there is something greater within me that wants to be expressed, that wants to come out and play. What is it? I don't know what it is. That's why the ego, wants to be in control. It wants to know what's going to happen. And when we surrender that egoic self to the higher power, we are stepping out in faith, in trust, to know that there is something better for me than what I can do for myself. So I was reminded this last week of the welcome prayer. And it's actually, I was told, is it posted on our website. But I wanted to remind you of it again. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I welcome everything that comes to me today because I know it is for my healing, or I put in parentheses, liberation. I welcome all thoughts, feelings, emotions, persons, situations, and conditions. Welcome it all. This is what life is giving us. These are all gifts of life, of reality. This next portion, I put in parentheses, is talking about letting go of that personal self, that egoic self. I let go of my desire for power and control. I let go of my desire for affection, esteem, approval, and pleasure. I let go of my desire for survival and security. These are biggies. I let go of my desire to change any situation, condition, person, or myself. I open to the love and presence of God and God's action within. Amen. My personal morning prayers begin with thanking God that I am love, that I am joy, that I am peace, that I am patience, that I am gentleness, that I am goodness, that I am faith, that I am meekness, and that I am self-control. Those are the fruits of the Spirit, and there is no law against it. Galatians 5:22 thus ends with, "Let us therefore live in the Spirit and surrender to the Spirit." The Spirit is greater than anything that any of us can do individually. We don't have to live this life on our own, thinking that it's just up to me to have to do it. We have within us a higher, greater power that is so willing to let us be led, so that our prayer then is to be teachable, to be pliable, to be humble, to be grateful for this life just as it is. And as I was making these notes, a song came to mind that I hadn't sung in quite a while, but I looked up the lyrics of it, and I feel that it fits this morning. I've changed it just a skosh here and there. What made the mountains? What made the trees? What made the rivers flow to the seas? And what hung the moon in the starry sky? Something bigger than you and I. What makes the flowers bloom in the spring? What writes the songs for the robins to sing? And what sends the rain when the earth is dry? Something bigger than you when the road is long, keeps you company. With love to guide you, it walks beside you, just like it walks with me. When I am weary, filled with despair, what gives me courage to go on from there? And what gives me faith that will never die? Something bigger, somebody bigger, something bigger than you and I. I was practicing that this morning, and I thought I could get through the whole thing without tearing up. Last word. But I'd love us to be able to surrender to that spirit that is within, to something bigger that has our highest and best interest, to put our faith and our trust in it every day, every moment, to let our lives be led by the divine. Namaste.